Andromedan blood splattered James Thompson's face as his Gauss rifle liquefied the alien skull. They underestimated human ferocity, thought conquering Earth would be effortless, a quick subjugation of a primitive species. James wiped the gore from his brow, steely eyes scanning the chaos of the battlefield. Smoking husks of Andromedan vessels littered the landscape, shattered by human ingenuity and tenacity. Yet this was only a temporary respite. James knew the fight had barely begun. An urgent transmission crackled through his neural implant. Earth's early warning system blared a dire alert. A colossal Andromedan armada had breached the solar system's outer rim. Thousands of warships, an invasion force hell-bent on enslaving humanity. James clenched his jaw. As Supreme Commander of Earth's defense fleet, the burden of survival rested on his shoulders. If he failed, humanity's light would be snuffed out forever, crushed under the heel of Andromedan tyranny. There could be no surrender, no retreat. Earth needed a miracle. And James would forge that miracle through blood, sweat, and sheer human defiance. The Andromedans would soon learn the true cost of tangling with mankind. For when backed into a corner, humans always found a way to triumph or die trying. The battle for Earth was about to begin. James strode into the war room, his face set with determination. The holographic display flickered to life as his senior officers snapped to attention. Time was short. Every second mattered. "Listen up," James barked. "The Andromedan fleet is closing in fast. We need to hit them hard and hit them smart. I want our ships deployed in a staggered formation, frigates screening the destroyers. Cruisers will hang back and provide fire support." He tapped the display, outlining key positions. "Marcus, I need you to lead a strike team onto the Andromedan flagship. Find out anything you can about their battle plans and weak points. It's a high-risk mission, but we're out of options." Marcus nodded grimly. "I'll hand-pick my best operatives. We'll get the intel, Commander. Count on it." As the officers filed out to execute his orders, an urgent transmission blinked on James's personal comm. He frowned, not recognizing the encryption protocol. Activating the message, a haggard Andromedan face filled the screen. "Commander Thompson, I am Zephyr of the Andromedan Resistance. I know you have no reason to trust me, but my followers and I can no longer abide the Empire's cruelty. We wish to aid your cause." James' eyes narrowed. A trap? Some Andromedan ploy? Yet something in Zephyr's expression spoke of sincerity. James decided to hear him out. "The Andromedan ships have a critical flaw in their shield harmonics," Zephyr explained. "A precisely calibrated ion burst can cause a cascading systems failure. I'm transmitting the technical specifications now." James scrutinized the schematics, his mind racing. It was a gamble trusting this Zephyr, but if the information proved true, it could change everything. He made the call. "All ships, stand by to recalibrate your ion cannons. New firing parameters incoming. Prepare to engage the enemy." On the flagship bridge, Marcus and his team crept through eerily lit corridors. So far they remained undetected. Suddenly a klaxon blared. Andromedan troopers surged into the passageway, weapons crackling with energy. Marcus swore under his breath, Varys's elite guard. The strike team was cut off, outnumbered and outgunned. It would be one hell of a fight. Marcus gritted his teeth as he fired his plasma rifle, the searing bolts cutting through the Andromedan troopers like a scythe. His strike team pushed forward, step by bloody step, towards the flagship's main computer core. They had to find out what the Andromedans were planning, no matter the cost. "Zara, hack that terminal!" Marcus shouted over the din of battle. The lithe operative nodded, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. Sweat beaded on her brow as she worked frantically to bypass the alien encryption. "I'm in," Zara exclaimed triumphantly. "Downloading their files now." Marcus stood guard, his rifle at the ready as the rest of his team formed a defensive perimeter. The Andromedans knew they were here now. It was only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. "Holy shit," Zara breathed, her face paling as she scanned the data. Marcus, you need to see this. Marcus leaned in, his eyes widening in horror as he read the schematics on the screen. The Andromedans had built a planet killer, a weapon capable of annihilating entire worlds, and Earth was next on their list. "We have to warn the commander," Marcus said grimly. He opened a secure channel to James, relaying the dire news. James's face hardened as he processed the information, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. "Understood, Marcus. Get your team out of there. I'll handle this." James turned to his bridge crew, his voice steady with resolve. "Plot a course for the Andromedan weapons coordinates. We're going to take that thing out before they can use it." "But, sir," his tactical officer protested, "what about the defense of Earth?" "I'm leaving that in Admiral Novak's capable hands. She'll hold the line." James met each of their gazes. "This is our chance to end this war. We can't let it slip away." As the Endeavour and her escort ships raced towards their target, the Andromedans were already mobilizing to stop them. Varys, the Empire's most ruthless commander, sneered as he received word of the humans' foolhardy mission. "So the Terran insects think they can sting us?" Varys chuckled darkly. "Let's show them the error of their ways." Varys's elite squadron, the Void Reapers, fell upon James's fleet like a pack of hungry wolves. Andromedan gunships strafed the human ships with plasma fire, their shields flaring under the onslaught. The Endeavour shuddered as a barrage of missiles slammed into her hull, warning klaxons blaring on the bridge. James held tight to his command chair as the deck bucked beneath him. "Return fire. Concentrate on their lead ships." The human fleet fought back with desperate ferocity, their weapons carving fiery gashes across the void. One by one, Andromedan ships exploded into searing fragments, but for each one destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. A console exploded in a shower of sparks, shrapnel slicing across James's cheek. He barely noticed the blood dripping down his face, his attention focused on the flickering tactical display. They were taking heavy losses, but the Andromedan weapon was almost within range. Suddenly, a devastating salvo from Varys's flagship ripped through the Endeavour's already weakened shields. The bridge shook violently, throwing James from his chair. He staggered to his feet, alarm screaming in his ears as he surveyed the damage. Half his crew lay dead or dying, the once pristine deck now a charnel house of blood and twisted metal. James knew they couldn't take another hit like that. The Endeavour was on her last legs, barely holding together, but the Andromedan weapon loomed before them, a monstrous construct of alien metal and malice. They were so close. He had a choice to make. Back on Earth, Admiral Novak stood tall on the bridge of her flagship, the Relentless, as she coordinated the planet's defense. The Andromedan fleet had them boxed in, a seemingly endless tide of ships pressing in from all sides. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Agamemnon and the Xerxes," her comms officer reported, desperation creeping into his voice. "The Andromedans are breaking through our lines." Novak slammed her fist against the tactical display, frustration and fear warring inside her. They were being pushed back, slowly but surely. It was only a matter of time before the Andromedans overwhelmed them completely. Suddenly a flicker of movement caught her eye. A squadron of Andromedan ships, their hulls marked with the symbol of Zephyr's resistance, broke formation and turned their guns on their former comrades. Explosions blossomed among the enemy fleet as the defectors sowed chaos and confusion. "Zephyr's people are buying us time," Novak said, a glimmer of hope kindling in her chest. "We need to make the most of it." She opened a channel to all remaining Earth ships. "This is Admiral Novak. I know we're up against the odds here, but we can't give up. Too much depends on us. The Endeavour is counting on us to hold the line. Humanity is counting on us. So let's show these Andromedan bastards what we're made of." A ragged cheer went up from the human fleet as they surged forward with renewed determination. They would not go quietly into the night. They would rage against the dying of the light, even if it cost them everything. James stared at the looming Andromedan weapon, a cold determination settling in his gut. The Endeavour shuddered around him, her hull battered and broken. Consoles sparked and smoked, the acrid scent of burning metal filling the air. He knew what he had to do. "All hands, this is the commander. Abandon ship, get to the escape pods now." His voice was steady, belying the turmoil raging inside him. His crew hesitated, their faces etched with a mix of fear and loyalty. James met their gazes one by one. "That's an order. Go, I'll finish this." Reluctantly, they filed out, leaving James alone on the ruined bridge. He gripped the helm controls, his knuckles white. The Endeavour groaned in protest as he pushed her engines to the limit, setting a collision course with the Andromedan weapon. As the ship hurtled towards its target, James allowed himself a moment of reflection. Images flashed through his mind. His childhood on Earth, his first command, the faces of those he had sworn to protect. He thought of the sacrifices made, the lives lost in this war. It all came down to this moment. He opened a broadcast channel, his voice ringing out across the battlefield. "Varys, you think you've won. You think you can crush the human spirit, but you're wrong. We will never stop fighting for our freedom. Our sacrifice today will inspire others to rise up against your tyranny. The Andromedan Empire will fall." James closed his eyes as the weapon loomed before him, a monstrous construct of alien hate. He whispered a final prayer, not for himself, but for those he left behind. The Endeavour slammed into the weapon, a brilliant flash of light erupting across the void. The explosion was cataclysmic, a searing shockwave rippling outwards, engulfing both the weapon and James's ship. In that instant, Commander James Thompson, hero of Earth, was gone. The blast wave slammed into the Andromedan fleet, their formation shattering like glass. Ships tumbled and spun, their crews thrown into chaos. Admiral Novak watched from the bridge of her flagship, a fierce pride swelling in her chest. "All ships, engage the enemy. Give them everything you've got." The Earth fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing, taking advantage of the Andromedan's disarray. Zephyr and his defectors joined the fray, their ships turning against their former comrades. The tide of battle had shifted. On the bridge of his flagship, Varys snarled in rage as he watched his fleet falter. The loss of the weapon was a devastating blow, but the growing mutiny among his own people was unforgivable. "Prepare a boarding party. We're taking the fight to their flagship." Varys and his elite warriors stormed the corridors of Novak's ship, their weapons spitting plasma. Novak met them head-on, her own troops rallying behind her. The clash was brutal, a whirlwind of steel and blood. Varys lunged at Novak, his augmented strength fueled by fury. But Novak was quick, dodging his blows with fluid grace. She countered with a flurry of strikes, her movements precise and deadly. They traded blows across the ravaged deck, neither giving ground. Varys was a formidable opponent, his advanced weaponry and enhanced physiology making him a terrifying adversary. But Novak's quick wit and unorthodox fighting style kept her in the game. She feinted left, then dove right, lashing out with a devastating kick that caught Varys off guard. He staggered back, his lip curling into a sneer. "Impressive for a human, but you only delay the inevitable." Novak circled him warily, her eyes never leaving his. "You underestimate us, Varys. That's always been your weakness." The fight raged on, a dance of death amidst the chaos of the battle. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and Admiral Elena Novak was determined to see it through to the end. Varys's eyes glinted with cruel satisfaction as he activated the hidden fail-safe device. The neural implants embedded in every Andromedan soldier, including Zephyr and his defectors, suddenly flared to life. Their faces contorted in agony as the device overrode their free will, erasing any trace of rebellion and replacing it with unquestioning loyalty to the Empire. Admiral Novak watched in horror as Zephyr and his followers turned their weapons on the human forces, their movements rigid and mechanical. The defectors, who had fought so bravely alongside them just moments before, now fired upon their former allies with cold precision. The sudden betrayal caught the humans off guard. Novak barked orders to her crew, desperately trying to adapt to the new threat, but the distraction was all Varys needed. He pressed his advantage, raining down blows on Novak with relentless fury. Novak parried his strikes, but she could feel her strength waning. Varys's augmented physiology gave him an edge, and the tide of the battle was turning against her. As Varys raised his blade for the killing blow, a figure burst onto the bridge. It was Marcus, battered but alive. He launched himself at Varys with a roar, his movements a blur of speed and power. Varys turned to face the new threat, his eyes widening in surprise. "You're supposed to be dead," Varys snarled. Marcus smirked. "I'm full of surprises." The two warriors clashed in a whirlwind of strikes and counter-strikes, their enhanced abilities pushing them beyond the limits of ordinary soldiers. Marcus moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost Andromedan, his reflexes bordering on the superhuman. As they fought, Marcus revealed the truth of his heritage. He was the product of a secret human Andromedan hybrid program designed to bridge the gap between the two species. His unique physiology granted him the strength and speed of an Andromedan, tempered by the ingenuity and adaptability of a human. The revelation only served to enrage Varys further. He redoubled his efforts, his blows becoming more savage and uncontrolled. The bridge shook with the force of their battle, consoles sparking and shattering under the onslaught. Across the battlefield, the recontrolled defectors turned the tide once more. The Andromedan fleet, bolstered by the return of Zephyr and his followers, pushed back against the human forces with renewed vigor. Earth's defenses began to crumble, ships falling from the sky like burning stars. Novak, seeing the battle slipping away, made a desperate gambit. She and Marcus, fighting side by side, managed to access the Andromedan command codes. With a final desperate effort, they broadcast the override signal, hoping to free the defectors from Varys's control. The signal pulsed across the battlefield, a silent wave of liberation. One by one, the defectors stumbled and shook their heads, the haze of control lifting from their minds. Zephyr, his eyes clear once more, looked to Novak and nodded in gratitude. But the victory came at a cost. Marcus, his body pushed beyond its limits, collapsed to the deck. Novak cradled him in her arms, watching helplessly as the life drained from his eyes. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "I wish I could have done more." Novak shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You did enough. You saved us all." With his last breath, Marcus smiled. Then he was gone, his body still and lifeless in Novak's arms. Varys, seeing his control over the defectors shattered, let out a howl of rage. In a final act of spite, he activated the self-destruct sequence on the Andromedan ships. If he could not have victory, he would ensure that no one else could either. Novak and the remaining human and defector forces fled the exploding ships, watching in silent horror as Varys and his loyal soldiers were consumed by the flames. The battle was won, but the cost had been high. In the aftermath, Earth lay in ruins. Cities were reduced to rubble and the population had been decimated. Novak, now the highest-ranking officer left, took on the burden of rebuilding. Zephyr and the remaining defectors, haunted by their actions under Varys's control, pledged their support to the humans. They would work together to forge a new future, one where both species could coexist in peace. As Novak stood amidst the ruins of her world, she gazed out at the horizon. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she knew that they would persevere. They would honor the sacrifices of those who had fallen and build a better tomorrow. The scars of the war would take generations to heal, but Novak was determined to see it through. She silently promised to uphold the legacy of James, Marcus, and all those who had given their lives for freedom. In that moment, as the sun rose over the shattered remains of Earth, Novak felt a flicker of hope. The war may have been won, but the true battle, the battle for peace, was only just beginning. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.